All right. Thanks for coming out this evening. We're going to have a brief special called meeting before we get into the retreat portion of what we're doing. But before we do that, Ms. Kinzer, would you call the roll?
Ms. Parker, Ms. Kinser's here, Mr. Harlan, Mr. Fulbright.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Present.
Ms. Irvin. Mr. Sims.
Here.
Mr. Hooper.
Here.
Mr. Howell.
Here.
Mr. Lindsay. Here. And Mr. Dudley. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, and I will say I'm pretty certain that Miss Irvin is getting ready for a basketball game tonight after Santa Fe won their last two games at the buzzer, pulling off pretty big upsets. They're one game away from the state tournament, so we wish them well. All right, we have one item on our agenda. Have a motion from Mr. Moore, second by Ms. Kinzer. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, I believe we're ready to vote. Is that everybody? Okay. Was it unanimous? Okay. Just want to make sure nobody had a problem with the agenda before us. All right. Well, let's move on then. Discussion of superintendent search. We briefly touched on this last week, but we wanted to meet for a little while just to set out a little more detail of what we're doing. Who wants to start the discussion on this? Mr. Lindsay.
Well, I did kind of write something up. I meant to send it out in an email where everybody could read it, but I didn't get time today. But I told you guys my feelings the other night, and but I'll go through this, and you guys can stop me. But my suggestion, and this can be in the form of a motion. But step number one, go on and post a position as soon as possible, even if that's tomorrow, and accept applications through April 1st. At that point, then those applications and resumes can be sent to all board members, and then each board member can submit on April the 18th. Each board member can submit 2 to 3 names of the applicants to move on to round 2. That'll kind of get that number of applicants down to a workable number. And then with the help of HR and Ms. Ventura and anybody else that wants to give their input, prepare a list of questions to send out to those semifinalists. Instruct each candidate to produce a simple video of them answering those questions, and those videos be due April 27th. That time, all those videos will be sent to the board members. We can watch those at our convenience. And then on 5/2, that's all these nights are regular scheduled meetings for us. But on 5/2, we could publicly rank each candidate via secret ballot, and then the results can be tabulated. Ms. Ventura, Mr. Ard, whomever can tabulate those votes, and we can come up with 4 or 5 finalists, whatever number this board would like. And then we bring those 4 or 5 back for face-to-face interviews that can be scheduled within the next couple of weeks after that, somewhere around the 17th, 18th, 19th of May. And then we meet again. We can meet again on the 24th, and we rank again through a secret ballot. At that time, we will have an apparent leader in the clubhouse, and then the chairman, Mr. Wolver, can work on negotiating a contract, and then we could come back. We meet again on June the 6th, at which time we could approve that contract. And I would like to put all of that in the form of a motion.
That's why I was looking at you to see how you were gonna type that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just take a picture with my phone and shoot it to you, so.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion from Mr. Lindsay, second from Mr. Moore. I would just, if you're looking for wording, I would just say motion to approve posting March 8th and following schedule as presented by Mr. Lindsay. And then we can always amend it as we go through our discussions. Mr. Moore?
I mean, that was actually where I was gonna go with this. I think the biggest thing is to go ahead and get the posting of the position out there. Clearly, we would have, in my opinion, kinda up until, April 1st if we needed to refine this or make sure we got it, the wording exactly right. But that's kind of the big thing, and I do agree with Mr. Lindsay. I especially would like to go ahead and get this posted, get it out there, and, then we can, if we need to refine any of those details over the next, month, we can do that.
Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Howe?
So, at any point, are we not having any discussion or allowances for, parents to have a comment or MCEA to have comments? I know before in the past we have, even the last two directors, you've had public input on those as well. I mean, it's not their decision, but it is nice to have some feedback from stakeholders as to what they think these people could offer.
I'm trying to think where that would fit in the process. I'd say maybe somewhere around the face-to-face meetings.
Yeah, may I comment?
Ms. Kinzer?
Having just been involved in the TSBA one, we followed to the letter what they wanted us to do. A lot of which was a lot of trouble, a lot of, I don't know, it helped the process. I think the most transparent thing is having those interviews where it's open, that anybody can come, that they be put on our YouTube channel, and all. I mean, the only time there was real feedback is when the teachers got to meet with the candidates, and that really to me was interesting, but I don't know that it was all that necessary. I don't know that it completely changed. I think we did what we did because that's what TSBA, we pay them a whole lot of money to tell us what to do. We had a meeting with community leaders, we had, had a lunch, we had, travel around, saying all that. I think all that could be decided once we narrow it down to those candidates we're going to interview. The ones we're going to interview in person. What we're doing differently is we're the ones that are going to be going through the applications. That's what TSBA did before we did any of that. So I like the idea of that, and then if we wanted to involve others, we've still got an opportunity to do that.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure that, quite honestly, the public's perception is 110%. And to be perfectly honest, the public's perception of this board is that things have been done on the back, in the shady, really. And whether it has or not, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying we want to make sure that everyone has a say in this besides just, ultimately it is the 10 of us that have a say, but it is just nice to have other people who have a stake in it, and, you kind of want them to have buy-in. You want a teacher's voice to be heard. You want their voice to be heard, to just, this is going to be their boss. Does any other industry do this? No. But, there are 143 school systems in the state of Tennessee, and this is kind of typically how I thought a lot of them do. But, I think we should make sure that it's transparent as possible.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Parker?
I was just going to say, and not just the TSBA, but in the search we did prior to that, community involvement was sought. But I will say at that point, we had things like Teachers Council and PTA councils and things like that we got a lot of input from, and I think we can do those type of things. Personally, I would rather see that done before we get into actually evaluating candidates, because I'd like to see what the community wants as far as leadership qualities as far as, you know, what direction they want to see us go. I think once we have applications and have specific people in mind, I think it's real easy for people to get attached to one person. And I think that happened the last time from some of the input that we got, and I think that skewed, in some ways, the decision of this board, which was not a unanimous decision. It was a very closely contested decision that was made. The other thing I would say is I think anybody that watched that meeting going back a few weeks ago can see that there was not a lot of pre-planning that was done in the process. There was no secret meeting on that, so if that's the perception in this community, I would hope that they would rewatch that meeting and see. We were trying to figure it out on the fly, and that's something that the Sunshine Law requires us to do, and I would hope that all board members would make sure that they reiterate that to the community, that we're doing the best we can, as transparently as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. I'll just throw out a little funny, side note to that. I believe it was on one of the radio stations last week. I was on there talking a little bit about this, and someone mentioned if this had been planned behind the scenes, it was the most unorganized behind the scenes planning that's ever been done because of the way the meeting was conducted. So that was just kind of a funny observation. Mr. Lindsay.
Both of you guys took my thunder there. That's I wanted to comment on that. It's pretty obvious of the dysfunction we showed that we were flying by the seat of our pants. But we can get public input anytime. We have email addresses. I have 3 of them. You know I have a phone. All of what I laid out all be public meetings that where the public can make comments on. That's as transparent as that defines transparent. So, but I talk with my constituents when they have a concern. They reach out to me, and I just to hint at that somehow that we're not being transparent through this process is just not correct. So we can gain public input. That's what we all got elected for. We represent a certain portion of our county. We represent a certain number of constituents, and that's why we're here to make these decisions.
Okay, Mr. Moore.
Just want to kind of go back to, under, what is it? I want to make sure I'm looking at this correctly. Under policy 5.802, there are some qualifications listed. Do we waive anything based on the previous policy? I honestly don't recall. Just for clarification, so nobody's looking at that. Professional educator's license is one of those. A master's degree in education with a preference for a doctorate. 3 years of successful experience in school administration, and obviously the other one is just such other qualifications as the board deems desirable. And I didn't know if there was any. I know we have a motion on the floor here, but I just want to make sure that what we're voting for as far as the posting still aligns with that, or are we making any changes to that?
I would say we stay with our policy would be my suggestion. Mr. Sims.
And we did this with the previous one, and I personally would be okay with going with what the state law says. I think it is bachelor's degree.
That's it.
That's it. I feel like if there was a qualified candidate last time that was his that was all that he had. I don't think he held an education license. So I personally would be on board with waiving our policy or suspending our policy, I guess, to reflect the state law.
Okay, Ms. Kinzer.
One of the things when we met with TSBA back then, is there was a discussion about somebody being a business person. Well, we have a business person. Doug LaConan in his office are taking care of the finances. The idea that we didn't have one single problem with our audit and everything, and he's so I think you've gotta have an educator. I think it's got to be somebody that has had experience as an educator. I think that what we have asked for in our policy is more than what the state, and that means where our expectations are greater as well. And I think that is the needs we have in this county, is that somebody has experience, not only in an administrative position in education, but as far as dealing with the things like curriculum and all of that. So I would not be for waiving policy.
All right, let me, kind of recap some of the things I'm hearing. I think as far as getting community input, we could do a lot of that online, and I think we could run it concurrent with during the time that we are accepting applications and resumes. If we have a posted date, obviously we're gonna have an end date that we set for the applications. I think we could take public feedback up into that end date as well, and we just move with public opinion, with the applications and resumes, and go with it in that direction. As far as the policy, we will need to take a vote. I don't know, I think probably, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We'll vote on the timeline first, then we'll vote on the wording of the requirements, just for clarity. Mr. Lynn, okay. Because I do think that we need just a little more discussion about that, just so that we make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to that, or at least some sort of agreement. All right, any other discussion on the timeline part? Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring up the board policy 5.801, because it does mention in there, the interview process for each finalist shall include meetings with various staff and community groups. So I did want to go ahead and put that 5.801, as you guys discussed that. And, Mr. Lindsay, can I get the videos were due April, what was the date of that? Thank you.
I would say that there would be a way that we could open either something up to the community to come. I don't know that going around having a bunch of different get-togethers is necessary, but if they want to come be a part of the interview whenever we're meeting, any community leaders available to come to that. Any other discussion on the timeline? I think we're ready to vote on the timeline. I'm a yes too, but somehow I got logged off. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, looks like we're good to go on that one. Let's talk a little bit about our requirements, just simply because I do think this is something that I've heard a lot of buzz about. Like Mr. Sims said, I don't know how many people have said, we need to have somebody who's administrative experience, CEO type, and all that. So I'm not discounting that. I'm almost thinking we might need to have that discussion. Mr. Moore.
I'll just start it off with a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to set aside from policy 5.802 the first two qualifications for a superintendent, which are professional educator's license and a master's degree in education.
Okay, have a motion from Mr. Moore, second from Mr. Hooper.
I'll explain myself while I got the light.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to throw that out there to discuss. I'm honestly kind of back and forth on this. I'm not sure. I know it's something the last two times we've discussed as well. My biggest thing is, I guess if I'm going to go through this logically, removing those two in no way limits who we're going to get. It's the same people, some of the same people, if they were still in there, we would get them. And it in no way forces anyone on this board to choose anyone that does not have those qualifications. So for anyone that feels like those are a necessity for these positions, for this position, they can still use that as their criteria and still make that decision. So everyone on the board would still have that opportunity. But for those that, there may be someone that shows up, that puts in a resume on this, and they don't fit the box maybe we thought they should fit into. I know as someone who has hired people for over the last 20 or so years, I've oftentimes been surprised when someone applies for a position, and they may not have initially looked like what I thought I was looking for, but they turned out to be quite the fit. So I would be in favor of removing those two.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lindsay?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, could I ask Mr. Moore a question?
Sure.
Just looking at that, if we set 1 and 2 aside, then there's still 3 years successful experience as a school administration. Could we not simplify it and just say that we're gonna set all of these aside, and however, you guys are a lot better at wording this than I would be, but the minimum of state law requirements?
Go ahead.
I'm not opposed to that. I guess I could use my own logic on myself there. I know my preference would be to have that we're not training a green superintendent. I'll be honest, that's where my brain is going on that. But that said, if I use the logic I just presented you guys with, it would make sense to set that aside. So I would be okay with modifying my motion to just it being setting aside anything in our policy, and that gets a little tricky, that is outside of the state requirements. Is that what you're thinking, Mr. Lindsay? I'd be okay with modifying my motion to
Okay,
make
we
that.
have that motion, and Mr. Hooper's good with modifying the second on that. Mr. Howe?
So, this is my second time going through this process, and both times we waived that or suspended or modified in some way that policy. Why do we have it? Like, if the last 2 times we've had it, why do we have that policy? Why, and we have skipped it or suspended it. Why do we even have it? Why don't we just go ahead and just change the policy altogether? Because our track record is to not go by that policy, so. Okay, but we are waiving it now, and we did waive it last time. So, I mean, I'm just saying, if it passes, I'm not sure, I think we should look at this hard. Why do we have the policy if we're gonna continually waive it?
Ms. Ventura, let me ask you this question. Just in general, and maybe Mr. Ard, you could answer this maybe a little bit better. I'm kinda talking in general terms, so don't give me specifics, but do all people in the central office have active teaching licenses?
No, sir.
Okay.
We
I
have
do
several
not.
positions.
I am one that does not.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd say a little bit different. And I guess that's what I'm getting at to my point, is there may be somebody who's been in a central office somewhere for extended periods of time that may not hold the teaching license. That's my concern there. Ms. Kinzer?
I think I've said all I need to say, but I kind of feel like I'm swimming upstream here. I just can't imagine you want a principal, but, you know, the principal of the school, then he's got to have certain qualifications as far as education and all of that is concerned, very important. Same with the teacher's got to be certified. You're asking somebody that's actually going to be making decisions for 13,000 of our kids. We want our scores to be improved. We want everything to do with curriculum and everything so that these kids learn what they have lost in these last 2 years as well. We want to be that system that's up there that people talk about. And I realized that last time they brought to us 3 names, one of which didn't have any experience with admin, didn't have, and TSBA brought that person to us because we, in our interview, said something about it. And if you followed what happened to him, you know that he was just looking for a way to get out because he wasn't getting and I won't even go into that. But I'm just saying to you that whoever, that our teachers and our staff and our principals and our supervisors and our coordinators look to, it needs to be somebody that they know has been in the ring with them.
Okay.
And knows how to handle things. So over and out.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Parker?
I will say, while I don't have a problem reverting to the state law, I will say the whole idea of a business person, in theory, sounds great, but here's the other thing, you also have to pay people that are in the business world, and that's usually where the rubber meets the road. So I don't have a problem opening it up. Again, if we're controlling this process and we're looking at the applications, at that time, if we see somebody that doesn't have principal experience, central office experience, if that's something that we as individual board members value, that's what our stakeholders tell us that we should value. If curriculum is something that they tell us that we should value, I think that will impact how we score these particular applications. And I don't want to limit our pool, especially when we don't know what everybody is prioritizing. I'd rather just keep it open.
Mr. Lindsey?
And that's a comment I want to make, that changing or setting this policy aside doesn't change what I'm looking for in a superintendent. I just don't want to limit our pool any. And there's minimum requirements laid out by state law, and I have to agree with Mr. Howell. If we want to put it on the next work session, I think we ought to simplify our policy and just say that qualifications are laid out by state law. I think we overthought this in 2018 or whenever that update got made. So I by no means am I saying that I want a business person or a non-education person. I don't. I probably shouldn't say what I want right now. That might not be good for me to do, but so that doesn't change anything. I just want us to make it as vague and make sure that our pool of candidates is as wide as it can be.
Thank you. I don't see any lights. I'll just throw my 2 cents worth in. I definitely wouldn't want anybody less than what our policy states. But I also know that, especially in the job market we have, our pool of applicants could be pretty small to start with. So I do think we just need to hold to our own opinion, hold to our own criteria, and let that be our guide, and open up our pool as wide as possible. Is my thought. All right, Ms. Shirley, I think we're ready to vote. Mr. Hooper. All right. Then we'll go ahead and go with those state-based criteria. But obviously, I think each one of us is going to hold a different expectation of, or as we look at the applications. The only other thing I think we maybe just need a little bit of clarity and focus on is how to solicit public opinion during the time that the posting is open. Mr. Moore, you go ahead.
I think it echo what had been said before. I have no interest in tasking staff with some difficult or putting together community hall meetings or anything of that nature. I think Mr. Lindsay laid out all of these meetings that we plan to be conducting. These things are public meetings. As he said, we all have our information posted publicly for the public to be able to reach out to us individually, which is probably what I would recommend each person that's concerned about this to do. I mean, it's been pretty clear that we're going through this process locally through the newspaper and other media. I think everybody's well aware that we're getting into a search process. So if someone has views on what we should be looking for, they should be following along play by play and reaching out to board members as they want to share their input on how it's going along each step of the way.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Parker.
Sorry, and y'all may have already covered this, but has there been any discussion about where all we're posting this? Are we just putting it on our website, or are we putting it on?
That has not been clarified yet.
Okay.
Where I'll let you address that.
Sure. So the new website that we use, that we post it to, when we post it to our job board, it automatically posts to like LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, Google. There's literally like 30 different places that it posts. We've also set up a HR Facebook page, and so all of our jobs are getting pushed to the Facebook page. So then I can send you guys the link to that, so you guys, then anybody else can just reshare that posting as you continue. And it's also getting posted to the HR's Twitter page. So it's hitting social media, it's hitting LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, all those kinds of things, as well as on our own website, so.
Okay, Mr. Sims?
Do you know if, so I've seen some TSBA emails go out. Have those counties contracted TSBA to send those out, or, I mean, we still pay dues to TSBA. I would think an email across the state would be simple to them, and if they couldn't do that, I don't have, that's all I'm asking for them to do.
Yeah, I can ask, of course.
And if they don't, I would like to know that as well. If they,
I think that would be a good piece of knowledge to have. All right, so are we satisfied with how they're posted? Mr. Lindsay?
I was just gonna say, I think there was some guarantee in TSBA search, and we fall within that guarantee, but it sounds like we're choosing not to use them, so if they owe us a search, surely they can send an email out, but I'm with Mr. Sims. I'd be curious to, but another thing I wanted to ask, I know, Ms. Kinzer, you've said one time that you had maybe the applications from or someone has the applications, Mr. R does. If, I think that we could take those, and try to reach out to those people personally to gauge their interest, since they had interest at that time. And I don't mind doing that personally. We as a board, if we could divide those up if we had to and try to reach out to those people, but that's just an idea, not something we have to do, but.
I would almost hesitate on that, because then it could look like preferential treatment to certain candidates, and that may get into a little bit of a hiring law-ish. I don't know, I'm not the legal eagle. Yeah.
Well, when we take bids on things, we send out bid invitations to certain people, so, I mean, it doesn't matter.
I would say the more interesting information to have would be after we get the applications in, to see how many of those people applied the first go-round.
I was gonna say, there was some really good applications.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would, and quite honestly, if you know of somebody, reach out to them. I don't know that having a systematic way of contacting would really have a good appearance, I guess, if nothing else, would be my concern. Mr. Howe?
How will we go about viewing these? I mean, I'd hate to have to print off 30 applications or 40 applications. Is there a way that we can view these online through the HR system?
There's a couple different ways with the new system. I believe I can do it to where I can set up access, but I can also email out resumes. So there's a couple different ways we can do it, because you only have access to the particular department. So I could set it up as a school board department, and you'd only have access to that one job posting and the applicants there. And also, do you guys want them, if not, do you want applications as they come in? Do you want applications once it's all received on it'd probably not be April 1st that I would probably get them to you. That is part of the spring break, and I'll be celebrating Mule Day that day and the next day afterwards with family. But no, but if you guys all want them to come in, it would go through April 1st, so it'd be best to probably send them on that next Monday anyways. That way, if any applicants applied through the 1st, or if you guys wanted to make it, that way you guys get them all and get them to you on that next Monday afterwards. I believe I can just email all of them to you guys, so you guys can have them, and then, so I don't think there should be any issues with that.
Okay.
Would it not be possible to just set it up as a meeting agenda through TSBA meetings and attach them as documents to that? We already do secure documents that way anyway.
Probably, I don't know, I don't do that, I haven't done that before, but that's not meaning that we can't do that,
That seems like
so-
a way everyone here is already familiar with using. I think we could probably set it up as these are meetings, and then, we already have secure documents that come that way that are only seen by board members for those. And it seems like it just aligns with what we already do.
I was gonna kinda echo what Mr. Moore said. We used to use SharePoint. I don't know if that, I mean, I think that's something that Tommy, we still pay for, so I mean, if we just had access that way too, that's another tool, but I would probably prefer to have them all in one place as opposed to having like successive emails, because I just feel like then I might potentially miss somebody. That's just my preference.
Okay.
Wait.
Ms. Kinzer?
We got an application, it was sent to board members, it's pretty impressive in a way, didn't know the person, I'm not saying that, but how would you have to contact them and have them reapply, or are you familiar with that? So,
Yeah, I would say they need to apply through the system. That way everyone's in the that's what we make everyone else do, so everyone needs to apply to the system once this gets...
who will tell him?
I don't have that, so if
I
you
don't know
send
that-
that to me,
did you-
then I will tell him.
I don't recall seeing it. I don't know if I didn't get it or...
Maybe.
Okay.
Did you get it? You got it?
Then I may have got it, and I just...
Okay.
I've only gotten a phone call from a company wanting to us to use
I
them, that's
will
all
be-
I've gotten thus far.
I will be happy to respond to him if you want me to, but, okay.
All right.
Sorry, there was
Go ahead.
one other question. I absolutely would like us to, wait until get all these at one time. I do not want, individuals. We should wait till the posting time is up, everyone's had their opportunity, and then put them together in whichever format we use, in one place.
All right. Any further discussion? Do we have a good plan we feel like going forward? Is there anything else that we need to take steps on at this time, Mr. Ard?
Just to clarify, so the job description itself, is that going to be the board policy 5.802 minus those qualifications that'll just default to state law? Is that what y'all want posted, or is there something in
I would
addition?
say compare it to what we used last time.
Do you all have that?
Oh, okay. Then that, yeah, that would be the problem. Yeah, it's got to be somewhere.
Okay, I'll search for it.
Okay. And if not, just, yeah, what you said the first time would be okay.
Well, initially, if it's okay, I'll just start with this posting and get that posted tomorrow, and then update it if it needs to be that way. It goes ahead and gets posted for you guys, if that's okay.
I think that's fine. All right. Seeing no other lights or business, we will adjourn, and we will start our board retreat in 5 minutes. Down there? Yes, down there.